We had more time to look at the tape, and we'll give you a full evaluation of Kenny Pickett, what actual progress has been made, and his connection with Pat Freiermuth, if that's the biggest key for the Steelers offense to get going. That and our Stars and Skulls grades here in the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, joined today by Alan Saunders. It's going to be a fun episode. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things in the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find this show on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoyed. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to get all of your daily Monday through Friday episodes, as well as our bonus content. We thank you for making us your first listen every day because we're your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. As I said before, joined by our man Alan Saunders of SteelersNow.com. Alan was on hand in Cincinnati for the Steelers win. Alan, I talked a bit about it and gave my thoughts just watching the game initially and what I thought I saw from the Steelers offense. I had some time to go over the All-22, look over things, and we've all had kind of, a full day to digest and go back at what we saw about here. And I want to get your thoughts on, one, Kenny Pickett and his connection with Pat Freiermuth, but two, if what we're seeing from Kenny Pickett, because the Bengals defense isn't good, and they didn't play particularly great in this past game, but was what you saw something that you think that people should be getting behind, or you think people can actually have more reason to believe in Kenny Pickett taking steps forward? Or is this another mirage where we've seen slight signs of progress and then regression back to more struggles?
Yeah, first of all, I want to apologize. I try to bring the energy on this show, and I am battling a cold right now, so I don't know how much I'm gonna have. I'm gonna give it all I got. Hopefully I don't get any skull grades from the audience here. But I think, look, Kenny Pickett had a good game. And we've seen Kenny Pickett be good in stretches over the course of his career. He's had other good games. I'm not sure that we saw him do anything groundbreaking. Like, it's not like he did something that we did not think he was capable of before. Which is why I was always fairly confident that Kenny Pickett would eventually figure it out, because he was showing us in spurts that he could do it and that it was just a matter of consistency. Now, there's still lots wrong with this game when you go back and look at the tape, specifically from Kenny Pickett's standpoint. Lots of missed receivers, a couple missed throws, a couple poor decisions. Like, you can pile on. There's a lot of reasons why they only scored 16 points in this game, right? Despite the fact they moved the ball really well. There's a lot that they could have done better, and Kenny Pickett is certainly a part of that. So I'll say this. If you were a person that had started to lose faith in the possibility of Kenny Pickett becoming that person eventually, then I think you probably saw some things that should give you that hope back. But I personally wasn't one of those people. And so I'm not sure I really saw a different Kenny Pickett than I've been seeing, other than a little bit more consistency. Obviously, they threw the ball over the middle. Kenny said mostly that had to do with Cincinnati playing those two deep safeties. And look, I'm sure somewhere on a couch somewhere, or maybe on a beach somewhere, Matt Canada was shouting to the TV like, it's real easy when you have all of Diontae Johnson, Pat Freiermuth, and George Pickens in the lineup at the same time. They play a lot differently, don't they? As the Steelers did that for the second time this season, had their three big passing weapons, and they did. You saw Cincinnati come out right away, put a safety to either side, left the middle wide open to Pat Freiermuth. Pickett was aggressive. He took what was given to him. I'm not sure we unlocked anything or did anything mystical or special. I just feel like it was a good game, and I thought that more of those were coming eventually for Kenny Pickett, and I'm not surprised that we saw one.
And see, I'm with you on this, is that this is why I've been saying this is very much able to be turned around from some of his bad games, because it wasn't like Kenny Pickett was incapable of making the throws that needed to be made in the spots that we look back and say, man, if he does this, it's not like he doesn't have the arm to make it happen. It's not like we haven't seen him make those reads before. These are things that are within his wheelhouse as a quarterback. And that's where I'm looking at. And I'm saying, as far as believing in him to be able to do this. What you're asking, what the Steelers are asking him to do is not be Patrick Mahomes. And I've said this many times. It's not be Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen or carry an entire team on its back. It's make the throws that are in the game and take the reads. I did a whole thread on my X account, Twitter account, whatever you call that website now, where I went through several different plays of just Kenny Pickett making the smart read, processing the field, and doing that very thing is the very thing that I think will be able to get this offense back on target. And what you were talking about with Pat Freiermuth being there, and when him, Diontae Johnson, and George Pickens are on the field, all the respect that defenses have to give to the three of them being there, I think it forces defenses to make tougher decisions in tighter spots, which opens up more opportunities if Kenny Pickett's reading the field. And we saw him take advantage of that when they went cover two, like you said. They attacked down the seam. When they started to try to guard Pat Freiermuth down the seam, he went underneath. That was his completion to Darnell Washington. Those are the
two deep shots in there.
Exactly.
Against cover one. Like they were right there. They were right there on the changes. But again, it's like, it's nothing that I haven't seen Kenny Pickett do before. It was just a lot of the good piled in one game. I'm not willing to like say he's a new man on one good afternoon.
I don't think you were saying that, yeah.
But like it's good progress to see the things that I've always known he was capable of come out in that fashion.
Yeah, I'm right with you there. And I think another factor in here is Pat Freiermuth, and we'll get to him in my grades a little bit more. But like Pat Freiermuth, I mean, part of it, he needed to get chances to be targeted in the first place to make plays in the passing game. But I don't know about you, Alan. He looks like a much better run blocker when I went back and looked at this game, because that was something you and I both pointed out even before he was injured. I was like, man, that run blocking is a hurt piece. He's not getting in the right spots. He's getting pushed around. And then all of a sudden, he's getting in the right, like since he's getting back from injury, he's in the right spots. He's not bulldozing people. He's not destroying people down the line, but he's getting in the right leverage, spreading his feet out wide, chopping his feet and getting guys out of the way and sealing his guys in the right direction. That to me, if he's able to do what he did in the past 2 weeks, as far as blocking and, catching when he's throwing the ball, it opens up so much more for what this offense can do both on the ground and in the air.
Yeah, I thought they did a really nice job of using him, not just in the way he was targeted in the passing game, but the way he was lined up. He was detached from the formation a lot of the time. Mm-hmm. And then when he was a part of the formation, a lot of times Darnell Washington was there too. They were playing with 2 tight ends or even 3 tight ends sometimes. And so if you look at some of those plays, like he's still getting a run blocking assignment, but it's a little bit, it's not as difficult of an assignment. They kind of like, I think they did a much better job of fitting the game plan to their personnel in a better way than they have in the past. I think that's the one like big difference that I noticed. It's just that I really like the way they used Pat Freiermuth, and it really didn't have anything to do with him catching the passes. Like just the way he moved around the formation, the way they set him up for run blocking, the way they used the multiple tight ends. We got 1 pony snap. I want more, but whatever, I'll take it. But I think there's more that they can do formationally like that to get those guys into better spots. And then look, there's going to be some games where you're going to play a team that's just going to say, we're not going to let you do that to us with Pat Freiermuth, and we're going to put our free safety as a robber right in the middle of that defense, and you're not getting none shall pass. Like you're not coming here. You're going to have to throw that deep ball to George, and that's okay. But I think they did a really good job of taking what Cincinnati was giving them over and over again.
I agree. That's the bottom line. Take what is there. That is all that's being asked of Kenny Pickett. If he does that, this offense has so much more in front of it to be able to make happen. I want to talk more about this offense and this defense as we get into our Stars and Skulls grades in the next segment here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter, Alan Saunders, stick with us. We got a lot to discuss. But first, I want to remind you this show is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is the app that you can download right on your phone and buy tickets for your favorite events and make it not a stressful effort. You can also go to their website, gametime.co. When you go to Game Time, it's a fast and easy way to buy tickets, not just for your sporting events, but music concerts, comedy events, theater events, anything that you think has for tickets. Check Game Time, because Game Time most likely is going to get you the best deals to get in. They give you killer deals even on last-minute tickets, and they have a best price guarantee that can't be beat. So when you're running late for an event, don't try to look for scalpers on the street to get tickets to your event. Go to Game Time. It's an app that you can have right on your phone, and you could book tickets up to the last minute or even up to an hour after your event has started if you need tickets tickets. And when you're getting those tickets, Game Time is going to show you the view from your seats so that you know that you're not getting scammed by a price that you don't like for a view that you don't want to have. And here's the thing, the prices, they're always great on Game Time because you get exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, hockey, concerts, comedy, theater events, so many different things. And their best price guarantee means that they'll always get you the best price. And if you find tickets in the same section and row for less somewhere else, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase, or go to their website, gametime.co. Terms and conditions apply. Create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, Chris Carter, Alan Saunders, breaking down Steelers right now. Let's get back to focusing on this game at hand. We always do our stars and skulls grades where we grade them a little bit different than just simply A pluses and Bs and things like that. We go through our stars and skulls where the more stars you get, the better you played. The more skulls you get, the worse you played. And if you get nothing, it means you had a neutral grade. You were just fine in the game. So let's start with this. We're going to start with the skulls because there's not too many to hand out after this game, and they all in all, the Steelers played a decent game across the board. But I have a few 1 skulls to hand out. No 2 or 3 skulls this week. I know some people want that for a certain individual, but we'll explain why that is. So our 1 skull grades. I got a 1 skull grade for 4 players: Shannon Sullivan, Darius Rush, Jaylen Warren, Diontae Johnson. Now, Shannon Sullivan, simply because he missed that sack, and I didn't really see him redeem himself. Darius Rush, there was a play where I thought it was on Levi Wallace on a third down. It was a slant over the middle. It's a bit of a rub route. But when I went back and looked at the all-22, Levi Wallace was like clearly talking to Darius Rush, hey, they're about to rub us. Let's switch off here. And Darius Rush didn't see it and didn't understand what was going on. And after the play, you can see Levi go up to him and be like, hey, that's what I was trying to tell you about. And I felt like that one was on Rush. And again, not a bad thing, just a 1-play thing for him. But Jaylen Warren, obviously, his fumble costly. He had a couple good runs, but nothing that I thought really substantiated making up for the lost turnover here. But the 1 skull that everyone's going to want about, because I saw some people say, Diontae Johnson better get 3 skulls for this game, is Diontae Johnson. Now, Alan, Diontae Johnson surely had some low moments in this game. Whether or not you feel about how Mike Tomlin should have challenged the catch in the end zone or the non-catch in the end zone, whatever it is, if he just holds on to that ball in that situation, it's a touchdown, no questions asked. Steelers go up 7-0, and it's a different tone for the entire game. And then, of course, the other moment when Jaylen Warren fumbled the very next play, and he shows no awareness to at least try to jump on it or even chase after the balls of it. I felt like those were 2 knocks. But the reason I don't give him more skulls for those 2 moments is because he made some really good catches that were huge for this game. They don't win this game without him. I might even go back and make this a neutral grade because the deep ball down the sideline was huge, and the third down pass over the middle where he plucked it out. It was a low pass. He plucks it with his hands. And it was, if they don't get that play, they don't move the ball on that drive. Am I being too harsh on Diontae Johnson, or am I not being harsh enough?
I think if anything, I would be harsher for the lack of attentiveness on the fumble. It's really pretty inexcusable. Like,
it is.
And let me get into, so, I mean, first of all, Diontae himself said he should have caught the ball in the end zone. I think everyone would agree with that. I'm not even sure that the Steelers had I think it was called incorrectly, but I think it's probably been overstated how good of a chance they had of winning a review. Just because they got the call wrong doesn't mean they want to make it right. Like, they hate overturning those judgment call kind of things. Okay. So I'm not up in arms about the lack of challenge, but he should have caught the ball. And he said as much, and he doesn't need to be blocking on that play either. Like, I saw some people question his effort there. Like, what he's doing there is fine. Like, he's just keeping his corner occupied. As long as his corner doesn't go to try to make a play, he doesn't have to go to block him. Like, he can just stand there and be like, I got you, you got me. Cool, we're over here. Sounds good. And then, but you've got to at least be focused enough on what you're doing inside the game to notice when your running back fumbles and the ball bounces past you and you got linemen running past you. Look, I mean, the Steelers were very fortunate. Connor Heyward made an outstanding play to save a touchdown. That very easily could have been a touchdown and would have been a massive play at that point of the game. And with due respect to whichever Bengals defensive back scooped that ball up, Diontae Johnson would have ran him down if he was hustling and trying. And so if Connor Heyward doesn't make that tackle and Diontae Johnson stands there and the Bengals score a touchdown, that's 7 points I'm putting on my wide receiver. And I feel like that's probably 2 skulls. And I think he can make some of it up with a fantastic catch on the crosser, nice awareness on the deep ball. Like, I thought he was fine the rest of the game, but that 2-play sequence was pretty bad. And I think really the just lack of clearly not paying attention to the play, like, you can't have it. You can't have it, especially in that situation where you're the fastest guy on that side of the field and you're the only one that has a legit chance of running a guy down. Like, you got to be more in tune with what's going on than that.
I feel you. And that's where I struggled, because I thought about giving him more, but I thought about making him neutral, because, man, like, that third down catch he had over the middle was I mean, it was perfect. He snatched it, low.
A very bad pass, by the way.
It was a bad throw. It was the right read, but poorly placed. And if Johnson
one of really only 1 or 2 in that game that I thought came out of the hand badly, and it happens. But yeah, that was a great catch. He had a couple.
It was a great. He had a couple.
He also had the miscommunication with Pickett on the third down out route.
Yes.
And I don't.
Yes.
It's impossible for me from my chair to sit here and say who's wrong, but it really looked like Kenny made some kind of signal over to that side of the field, which tells me I'm pretty sure Pickett wasn't wrong. Like, maybe he just missed the signal. And so that's just a true miscommunication. Like, hey, he signaled, but I didn't see it. And so, but also, like, hey, pay attention. Like, I don't know. I feel like this is a 2-skull game for Diontae Johnson, but I think lots of people have overstated that there's a problem with Diontae Johnson going forward because of this. Like, people like Diontae Johnson's fine. He's an important part of this team. He's looked up to in the locker room by the other wide receivers. Nobody on that team has a problem with Diontae Johnson. I think that's been way oversaid.
And that's the thing is, I think if Kenny Pickett continues to progress the way that he has, I think that Diontae Johnson's going to make a lot more plays this season. And I think that could be a huge part of the team. Let's get into the 1-star grades here, because there's quite a few 1-star guys that I have, and we'll get to the 2- and 3-star grades in the next segment. But 1-star grades, I have across the board: Dan Moore Jr., Mason Cole, Broderick Jones, Darnell Washington, Larry Ogunjobi, Alex Highsmith, DeMonte KZ, Michael Walker, George Pickens, Patrick Peterson, Nick Herbig, Presley Harvin, Joey Porter Jr. Now, I want to focus on the offensive line because I intentionally grouped those guys all together. I thought Dan Moore Jr., Mason Cole, Broderick Jones all did acceptable jobs in the run game. Dan Moore Jr. gave up a sack. Broderick Jones gave up some pressures. Mason Cole wasn't great at all times, but I thought they were all acceptable in the run game, and they were part of the Steelers running the ball yet again for the 4th straight time for over 150 yards. Darnell Washington, also huge in blocking there, had the big block on the touchdown. That was really solid there. Allen, we'll get to the other guys because I have the other the 2 guards graded higher, and we'll see how much. I'll show you just how much higher in the next segment. But where do you see the progress of the Steelers offensive line after their performance against the Bengals?
I'm not sure that they were as good as they've been in this game. This is not a very good Cincinnati defense. I feel like that I keep defaulting to that, and I look at the way some of the talent is like Trey Hendrickson's really good. He was the matchup I highlighted for this game, and then I thought Dan Moore needed to have a much better game than he did against Cleveland, or Trey Hendrickson was going to wreck some things. And he did give up a sack. It turned out to be against Miles Murphy, the backup rookie. And Trey Hendrickson got a sack, but it was when the Steelers left Najee Harris with him one-on-one. You can cross that one off the list. Don't do that anymore. I think they played better. I think they were acceptable. I thought there were problems with much of what they did. There were not, I thought the run game was productive, but I thought this was a game really where Najee Harris outran the blocking instead of the other way around. So I would probably have a lot of those guys as neutral, maybe. Okay. Really nice hustle by Moore and Cole on the fumble. They were the first 2 to get up and really react. And Dan Moore probably forced the guy into Connor Heyward. I'm okay with the star, but I think I'd probably be more neutral on the offensive line. I thought they were they were okay, but considering the defense, I'm not like, I thought Najee did a lot of, like, Najee Harris earned all those yards. Like, there were not freebies in there. And I thought that was one of the reasons why he was a little more productive back, because Jaylen Warren operates really well in space, but there just wasn't a lot of it.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of it. And I think that was part of by Jaylen Warren. Again, it's not a harsh thing against Jaylen Warren. Just the fumble just came at a really costly time.
And he wasn't great. Like, I honestly kind of think it might have been in his head a little bit after that.
I think so too. And I will say there were points in the game where I saw him fighting back, and I thought that was a good sign. He wasn't in a shell, but he wasn't himself. Other guys here, I gave guys on the defensive front, Larry Ogunjobi, Alex Highsmith. I also thought Michael Walker, he was solid. Like, there were a couple plays where I think he was out of position, but for a practice squad linebacker to come in, he had one tip pass that just happened to fall in the hands of Jamar Chase. But run stuffs, helping out, I thought that he continued to be in a position where that does not kill the Steelers. And that's a boost that you need with all the injuries that they've had at linebacker.
I thought Cincinnati specifically went at him too. I thought they were looking for him. And I thought he did a really nice job of stepping up. And they have, some of those guys like Trenton Irwin, Yoshi Voss, Tyler Boyd, that can be in those short zones that can really be murder for a linebacker, like, to try to deal with. And I thought he was really good in coverage. Thought he was solid against the run. Everybody dominated the run. But I thought he was really good again. He's been such a solid player. And I assume we're going to get to Trenton Thompson later. But, man, like, what fines for the Steelers for those two guys, because they've been so good. Like the call here with George Pickens too. I thought he was very good. Nothing negative at all, and he had the really nice one long catch. Alex Highsmith had a couple of devastating pass rush reps in this game. He wasn't consistently maybe getting as much pressure as you would normally, just because Cincinnati was getting the ball out quickly, but he was torching some guys. And Nick Herbig with his one big sack. I think there's still pieces of Jake Browning at the 15-yard line.
That was just, oh my God, he just crushed him on that play. I also gave Patrick Peterson and Joey Porter Jr. 1 stars. Patrick Peterson had that big third down breakup at the end of the game. Wasn't out of place any other time. Also made a big stop on a run early in the game. Joey Porter Jr., he got called for a penalty. He got beat on a deep ball but it was a perfectly thrown ball and catch. But otherwise, he was not a problem in this game. And Jamar Chase, the Bengals were trying to let him wreck the game. They were trying to get Jake Browning to just be able to throw him the ball. Joey Porter Jr. made it a lot harder for them to do that. Sure, no interceptions, but did have a big third down breakup. Was very close to an interception on that play. But I give him a ton of credit for being able to fight through that game and do a lot of things the right way, and also communicating, because the Steelers are doing a lot of baiting in their defense. If you look at the all 22, there's a lot of times where they were lining up in one way and then switching into another thing. And Joey Porter Jr. is making those switches like Cameron Sutton was. And Cameron Sutton was and still is an extremely smart cornerback who can do a lot of things. I'm impressed by that. We got to get to our 2- and 3-star grades here on the other side of this break here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Alan and I will be back in just a minute here, so stick with us. We still got a lot to discuss. But first, I want to remind you, this show is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is the #1 sports book in North America, and you got to get in it right today, especially with the NFL season getting ready for the playoffs and college football getting ready for the conference championship weekend. There's so many ways to win right now on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. So right now, new customers can get $150 back in bonus bets by winning any $5 money line bet. So if you have a great feeling on any of those big conference championship games coming up this weekend, just put a $5 bet down. And if you're right, guess what? You get $150 back in bonus bets. And if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is easy to win on spreads, player props, over-unders, and so many more ways to win. Hey, the Steelers play the Cardinals. You feel confident about that? Put a money line bet on, and you can get your $150 back in bonus bets by putting money on the Steelers if they beat the Cardinals in Acrisure Stadium this weekend. But how do you take advantage of all that? Simply go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. When you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon, you can get all the benefits of betting on the rest of the NFL season with offers you won't want to miss. Again, that's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get to FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL. Back here in the Locked On Steelers podcast, I'm your host, Chris Carter, here with Alan Saunders of SteelersNow.com. Alan, let's get to the rest of my star grades here. We're going into the 2-star grades here, and we got 4 people in the 2 stars. I'm going to go. We're going to start with the guy we talked at the start of the show. I gave 2 stars to Kenny Pickett. Not that he did anything spectacular, because he continuously looked like he understood what the defense was doing right. And sure, he didn't throw a touchdown, but the Steelers on third downs that they were actually trying to convert, taking away the 1 third down at the end of the game where they took a knee, they were 50% on third downs in this game. And a lot of the times that was on Kenny Pickett making the right decisions and finding the guys in the right spots and making the right throws in this game. He was a big reason why they possessed the football in this game. I felt like this might have been his most complete performance of the year. Would you say that? Would you agree there?
I thought he was pretty good against the Rams. And pretty good against the Raiders as well. But I think this was a very good performance. It didn't have that kind of drive that you would like, where you go, kind of the length of the field and score outside of the one, with the turnover. I don't know. I think there's a lot to like about the performance. I think 2 stars is a good grade. I just think there's so much more to want also.
Absolutely.
From the offense. And so I think that 2 stars is appropriate, especially because of where he's been. And it was probably his cleanest game. Let's say that. Like, there were just fewer like egregious mistakes, big missed passes. It was nice and clean. Broke Ben Roethlisberger's record for interceptionless streak. I think he's doing a lot of things well. They are going to need more from him if they want to win a playoff game, though. Like, this is not a gift-wrapped performance in that regard, and I think it's good to be on this track, though.
I think, again, he's on the right track. Other 2 stars, guys, I gave here, all defensive here. I thought Trenton Thompson was very good in this game, not just for his interception, which is a big part of his 2-star grade here, but he also helped in the run game. He was getting to the right spots, and he looked like a guy that the Steelers could rely upon in the safety / intermediary defensive back spots. And that's something that the Steelers absolutely need moving forward. Even if Minkah Fitzpatrick comes back this upcoming week like they expect him to, Trenton Thompson looked like a chess piece that you could move around the defense and find some answers with here. I thought he was really good, as well as Keeanu Benton and Cam Heyward on the defensive line. What say you about these other 2-star defenders here on the Steelers?
Trent Thompson just reminds me so much of Terrell Edmunds and the things that he's capable of doing physically. Maybe not as refined of a player, and probably not as actually literally no one is as freaky of an like Terrell Edmunds had 0.1% body fat or something like that. But I just think in terms of the way that you're able to deploy him on the field, I think he fits that role a little better than Keanu Neal and DeMonte KZ when they were trying to put him in there. Like, Thompson feels like he is that guy. He's got good length. He's strong. He hits hard. I've liked him since the very beginning. Talked to him his first day in Pittsburgh, and I think he's a smart guy. He studies hard. He's worked really, really hard to be a master of this defense, and I think it's showing. The fact that they didn't have any miscommunications this week, and really it was just those first 2 drives of that Cleveland game, and since then they've been pretty much flawless on defense in terms of getting things in and getting things right. I really think they have a player in Trenton Thompson. Not saying he's going to be a Pro Bowler, but I think he's a guy that should stay on the roster and should continue to have a role going forward.
I'm right with you. I think that I know that Keanu Neal was the guy they brought in, and not to diss Keanu Neal, but if Trenton Thompson gives you this kind of stuff, there's no need to rush him back if he gets off of IR at some point this season. But again, Keanu Benton, Cam Heyward, man, I really like what Benton's doing. And Cam Heyward, I thought, was special too in this game, especially against the run. There were plays, and Larry Ogunjobi got 1 star because I felt like he was good, but he was not as destructive as Cam Heyward and Keanu Benton were. I mean, there were times where Alex Kappa got the jump on Benton, and he was just, no, move him out the way. I'm making the play on this one. Cam Heyward also like that on several plays. Alan, I know that you and I have been big on DeMarvin Leal. He hasn't been getting a lot of snaps lately, but man, Keeanu Benton is looking very for real in his rookie season, to the point where he might be the part of the new era of the Steelers defensive line that they've wanted to create soon.
Yeah, I mean, I think like Cam Heyward was awesome, and
yeah,
you can really tell. I said when he came back he wasn't 100%. Well, look at what he's like when he gets to play with some rest. Because Steelers offense kept the defense off the field, and Cam Heyward was a bear in the middle of that defense, just mauling people and blowing up run after run. I thought he was awesome. His best game of the year by far. I thought Keeanu Benton was very solid next to him. Feels like those two guys are developing some chemistry also when they play together. I really like the Steelers defensive line rotation. If they get Mont Adams back this week, I think they'll have like 4 really good interior guys. And I'm not sure DeMarvin Leal is a part of that right now. Depends on how much they want to play base. I think if they're in more base, then he's more involved. But I think that's one of the better 4-man rotations I've had in a while. Like it's looking really good. And I don't think we've really even seen the tops of the potential for Benton. Like he still has a long way to go. He's still not even physically mature yet. He's still a young guy. Like he can get better. That's scary.
I agree. It should be scary to a lot of people. Let's talk about what was really scary. Some of the 3-star grades here. 6 guys I gave 3-star grades to. Najee Harris, I thought was spectacular in this game. Ran hard, like you said, outran the blocks. I mean, that 120-yard run was ridiculous, where he was just ran into the middle of the pile. Everyone wanted to, and then like everyone just thought it was over, and then he just comes out of it. I'd be shocked if he's not an angry run winner for Kyle Brandt, giving the Steelers 2 back-to-back angry run winners with Jaylen Warren getting it last week. So spectacular job for Najee Harris. TJ Watt, 7 pressures in this game, 2 sacks, just doing what TJ Watt does. I felt like he was great in this game. But also, I mean, I put Pat Freiermuth here. We talked about him earlier this game, not just the run blocking and the receiving. It was a whole package. Thought he was great. Chris Boswell gets 3 stars because he played really well. He continues to be the man right now. I think he is the best kicker in the NFL, as Justin Tucker's kind of struggling. Jake Elliott putting himself in that conversation with that kick he made on Sunday evening. But right now, Boswell, the only miss he has is the one they forced him to kick against the Jaguars. But when we look at the guards, Daniels and Seumalo, I thought Seumalo was very good in this game and really changed it. I think James Daniels might be the most underrated and unsung hero of the offense right now. Alan, whenever I look at the tape, he's kicking someone's butt. He's pulling, he's hitting people. I think that James Daniels is a huge part of this offense.
The Bengals love this like drop. The Eagles do it too. That's probably what I said. Drop 8 defense where they only rush 3 guys. And like when you're drawing this up schematically, you're like, all right, well, we're not really going to pressure the quarterback. These 3 guys will just go in there, and then the other 8 will kind of come filter back here. And like the Steelers were just mercilessly beating up the 3 defensive linemen that were rushing on those drop 8s. Like Daniels was pancaking dudes. I'm like, that's a poor guy has already got like, okay, here, we know you're not going to get to the quarterback. Just kind of stand here and, keep him occupied. Boom. Oh man, there's like, they were awesome. I really thought both guards were good. Now look, the Bengals defensive tackles aren't that great, but they're guys that can be pesky if you let them get going, and they did not let them get going. And I really feel like the Steelers offensive line, while wasn't perfect, I thought these 2 guys were certainly the best of it.
Yeah. I felt like, again, it wasn't perfect, but those guards, I thought they were a really great sign. Good stuff for them. So again, they get 3 stars. Pat Freiermuth gets 3 stars. Boswell, Watt, and Harris. Big week for all those guys. And with that being said, Alan, my last thought here is with the progress that we're seeing, the run game once can be lucky, twice can be coincidence, 3 and 4 times. You're building consistency in this run game. With the growth in the run game, the potential for Kenny Pickett to, again, just take what's there. And this defense is now a top 5 defense in points allowed right now in the NFL with what they were able to deliver this weekend. I really think that this team is on the verge of being a real AFC contender, not just to make the playoffs, but to be a dangerous team if a playoff team were to face them in January. and maybe even win this division. Would you agree with that assessment with what you've seen from the Steelers in recent weeks?
I'm not sure I'm willing to go that far yet, but I think here's what I'll say. And I said this on my podcast, Steelers Afternoon Drive, me and Zachary Smith, every weekday afternoon, and Carter comes along with us sometimes too, usually on Wednesdays. I'm not sure that I feel like the Steelers have a higher ceiling than I did before. I don't think they could go into Kansas City or go into Miami and get a playoff win. I just don't. But like, I think they have I'm feeling better about their chances of getting that far. Okay. Whereas like a week or two ago, or maybe even like 3 or 4 weeks ago, like I still thought, I've never not thought this was a playoff team, but I thought that this very well could be a, go in and lose a wild card game kind of playoff team, and maybe even not even a competitive wild card game kind of playoff team. I think they can win a wild card game. I think they can get into a game against a better opponent. I have a hard time seeing them beating one of those top level offenses until I've seen more from this team, more consistency. But I feel better about the idea of them getting to that second weekend of the playoffs right now. I think that's always kind of been where I've seen this team ceiling. And I think I feel better about their chances of getting there, even if I haven't really moved that line.
Yeah. I think that there's my whole reasoning here is that I've said for the jump. I said on like one of the last shows in the preseason, I said I think the Steelers can be a 12-win football team, and they have now positioned themselves where they're 7-4
total that I predicted before the season.
Yeah, 12-5. I think 12-5, and people thought both of us were crazy, especially with how they came out the gate against the Niners and the Texans. But man, with the teams that are in front of them right now, if they handle their business, if they avoid some major injuries at key positions, the Steelers could be looking at week 18 against the Ravens with a chance to win the AFC North with their 12th or 13th win of the season and have a good shot at getting a really good seed in the AFC playoffs, maybe even host a playoff game or two if things were to play out that way. That is why I think that people should be buying in on the Steelers. But that is a long way off. They got to handle the Cardinals this week, Sunday, and can't let that game slip through their fingers. And then all of a sudden they're wondering what happened. We'll see how they do. Mike Tomlin talks Tuesday. We'll certainly hear from him probably about Minkah Fitzpatrick. Allen, any articles that people should be looking out for on SteelersNow.com that people should be worried about?
Working on a story about Eddie Faulkner, where he came from, why he got into coaching, some people that have known him in his past. Not sure when that's coming out, but probably sometime this week. So a couple more interviews to do. And, just trying to figure out how much of this offensive change is real and how much is it just beating up Cincinnati. I think that's the big question going forward.
It is a real big question. We'll see what the answers are here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Also find all of Alan Saunders' work, SteelersNow.com, the Afternoon Drive podcast, and all the great stuff that they do with their team there. Thanks again, Alan. Come on. Thank you for joining us here on the Tuesday edition of the Locked On Steelers podcast. Let us know what you thought of our stars and skulls grades. If you thought anywhere too high, too low, whatever you thought, or if you even agreed. Let us know here in the comment section on YouTube, or give us a 5-star review with a positive comment on Apple Podcasts to help us out there as well. Again, I'm Chris Carter. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Carter Critiques. Read my work at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, post-gazette.com for there. And find me on the Locked On Steelers podcast on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Thanks again, everybody. We're back tomorrow with more talk on your Pittsburgh Steelers right here on the Locked On Steelers podcast.